Let me tell you the story of Isabel by setting the scene in a real church where I was the pastor, and the church was built in 1887 in rural England. It's a Sunday morning, and we're about to have communion in a very small congregation. Now, Isabel was a typical English rose. She's a beautiful woman until something very tragic happened in her life. A man who's now in prison horribly violated her, and it was as though it stole her personality. She was socially unable to have any eye contact. She wouldn't shake your hand. No conversation. She was the last one in and the first one to leave in a Sunday service. But as I began to serve the bread and wine of communion, something unpredictable happened. It was the summer of 1998. As I was serving the bread and wine of communion, it was as though she received back her personality. Now, I have no explanation for that, but it did more than pique my curiosity. So over the next 20 years in almost 30 different countries, I began to see similar things. Now, they were unpredictable and they were random. So they're not things that you could predict would happen, but they are things that could happen. Now, let me fast forward to when I was teaching at St. Edward's University in South Austin here in Texas. I began to ask a specific question. What was it that students specifically experienced when they participated in communion, when they received the bread and wine? So what I did was to enlist 425 undergraduate students to help me discover the answer to that question. Now, here's what I found. I found that God is always at work ahead of where we're at. So quite often we don't have a language to describe or explain what God is doing because, by definition, God is further ahead than we are. But what I was witnessing amongst these 425 students and taking notes on and employing my team to do the research with me was 7 distinct experiences that were common amongst late millennials and Generation Z. So what I did, I put together these 7 experiences into a model to communicate biblical truth to late millennials and Generation Z. Now, here's the bottom line to all of this. God is always working ahead of us. The challenge is not to those participating in communion. The challenge is to those who are serving it, officiating it, pastors and priests and bishops and presbyters and ministers and church leaders of all kinds. The challenge is the table open or is it closed? Whether we open it or close it, God is still working ahead of us. And the more we open it, the more we advance towards what God is doing.